So look at your caffeine, because caffeine again can make us react rather than respond to a situation, because it's really heightening us up. It's getting us into this heightened stress position, and we can start being very impulsive with our thoughts. Whereas when we're less caffeinated, we're going to be more mindful. We're going to be able to zoom out and look at everything with a bit more objectivity. Hello and welcome back. Now, just before we get started, if you're watching this on the Total Somatics YouTube channel, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and press the notification bell. Because whenever I release an episode, if you've done that, then you'll find out very quickly. So it's very time efficient for you. And also, if you haven't already checked it out, please look at my TEDx talk. It's on the subject of pandiculation, and you can find that talk if you go to YouTube after this podcast episode. If you go to YouTube and put into the search bar TEDx Heidi Hadley. And then when you listen to that, please give me a thumbs up, share it with anyone that you know it will resonate with, and also leave a comment below, because I love to see what your takeaway and feedback points are from that episode or from that TED Talk. Okay, so let us look at our subject today. So we're continuing on about noticing our nervous system. We've been looking at nervous system regulation, nervous system dysregulation. And just before we go into this episode, I just want to invite you again that next week is when I'm doing my live 3-hour online event, and it's called Regulate Your Nervous System and Release Muscular Tension. So it's an online live 3-hour immersive workshop, and I would love you to join me. So that's the weekend of around about the 25th, 26th of October. So it's next week. But to find out all the details here, if you go to totalsomatics.com/workshops, you will see the details and you'll find out how you can register for that 3-hour immersive workshop. Now, if you're watching this after October 2025, you still have an opportunity to, because that workshop will be available to purchase within the Total Somatics online shop. So after October 2025, have a look out for that and you will see it in the Total Somatics online shop. So again, I will mention that towards the end, but these episodes are really a little appetizer for what we're going to go into in greater detail in that 3-hour immersive workshop. And obviously, if you join me live, you're going to get huge benefits from that, as we have a Q&A session at the end where we can really delve into some of the specifics that I mentioned within that workshop. So what I want us to do today, though, is look at the subtle everyday habits that we've developed that could actually be causing our nervous system to run on high alert. Sometimes we're not even aware of it. So I've scribbled a few little notes down here, so I will be checking my notes. So excuse me for looking away from the camera. But I'll really find that this is a really important thing to check out on our daily practice. Now, the first thing, which I think we can all agree with, is that mobile phones and technology and devices are wonderful. However, they have their place. And so what we need to start doing is looking at these hidden stresses that are happening. And the first one I would say here is phones, the constant notifications that we can receive, the buzzes, the ringtone, the vibration. And, you know, people will come and see me in clinic and they'll maybe put their phone on silent, but that buzz, that vibration is still on. And when somebody phones or they get a notification, it's still buzzing. It might as well still be on loud, because it takes people's focus away back to the conditioning of those mobile devices. So what happens is every time we get a buzz, a notification, we get a ring, any of that, we actually get mini adrenaline hits. So when you think about that, it's great for our dopamine, it's our pleasure, it's this validation, thinking we've been noticed, or we've got a new friend, or we've had a new like, or whatever it is. And we get conditioned very quickly to become a slave to these devices. And I just want to share with you that I have 2 phones. So I have one for work and one for personal. And you'll see I have a watch here as well. But what I want to mention to you is that I can't tell you what my ringtones sound like because they are constantly on silent. They don't even have the vibrate working on them. And my watch just tells the time and gives me my heartbeat. I don't actually have that as a notification either. So all of my notifications are off because I feel that I have structure within my day. I have time that I actually have with real people, real time, FaceTime, as in face eye to eye contact. And then I'll allocate time to check my phone. And that is really important. So I'm not allowing the phone to dictate what I'm doing. I will check that as and when. However, my priority is in person situations in that situation. And that's where I'd like us to kind of look at how we start creating these boundaries. So the very first thing is to look at that. I've mentioned many times when I've been interviewed in podcasts that I often talk about Pavlov's dogs. Do you remember there's a psychology experiment, and what Pavlov would do is he would actually associate like the ringing of a bell with food for dogs. So the dogs started salivating because they associated ringing the bell with the food. And eventually, he would do is just ring the bell, but there'd be no food, but the lips would salivate. That's how quickly those dogs got conditioned to the bell and expecting there to be food. We can get very easily conditioned to these phones. They can become a slave to us. And in the same way, we might not be salivating, but we will be getting those adrenaline hits, the dopamine, and we're focused so much more on answering that phone or dealing with a message than actually building real life communications and relationships. So it's so important because that when we're actually talking to people in person, that's social engagement. That's a massive thing that we want to consider when we're looking at nervous system regulation. So first and foremost, really sit down and consider, what are you doing with your phones? Are they on silent? Can we change the situation we're in so we're no longer being a slave or conditioned to every ring, buzz, and vibrate? And we allocate time to check that phone like we did in the old days. If you remember life before the phones, we would have answer phone machines. We'd go off and have a life and then come back and check answer phone machines. We can still do that now and be really selective about as and when we pick up our phone. The second point that I want to mention to you about these hidden stresses can be that we can start skipping proper breaks. So having rest in between our activities in the day. And this is something to really consider because there can be this view in society, in some areas of society anyway, that we're hustling, we've got to work hard, we've got to push further. And also you see that in the exercise world, we've got to really pump hard to the point that people have said to me, they've worked so hard that they've vomited because of the effort that they've put in. That is huge stress on your body. So we want to look at, are we creating rest breaks in our day? Because that's really going to help to maintain a bit more of an equilibrium within our nervous system. Otherwise, if we're pushing ourselves all day and not having decent breaks, we start to create a stress state that's ongoing. It's our new baseline. And anything that comes in our way, we just have a less tolerance for it because we're living in this high functioning anxiety. Now, a third point I want to share with you is about poor posture and static movements. So if we're sitting hunched over or we're standing in one position for a long time, that signals to our body that these are the new holding patterns or our new normal. And so we can sometimes just liken this to, say, sitting at a desk all day. But I'd like you to consider other things that can create us in a hunched over static position or a rounded shoulder position. That can be if we do a lot of cycling or we're doing a lot of long distance running. All of that is tightening through the front of our body and it's causing us to have rounded shoulders, tightening our hip flexors so it tucks our tailbone up and under. And again, what this is starting to do is create a new normal. But in the process, it's reducing our lung capacity. It's affecting our gut health. It's causing a lot of joint issues too. And we really want to consider that your nervous system doesn't know the difference between perceived and real danger. So if we're constantly in this hunched over position, our energy and our nervous system is going to start to create stress responses that are indicative or linked with the fear response or the feigning death. And so what that will do is start to shift and change the state of our nervous system, because we are in this freeze and this holding down state. So we want to make sure that we're opening out our chest. Not only are we releasing all the tension through our abdominals and our hip flexors to help with healthy muscles and joints, but we're thinking energetically. We're thinking of how all of this is speaking to our nervous system. And if we're in this new normal of rounded shoulders, hunched position, which creates like that pouchy of a belly, bit of a popping out belly, even if there's not much fat on us, that's telling us that we're in this feigning death, this fear response. So we want to look at how we can unwind and release these postures that we can develop through habits. And then a fourth point I want to share with you is using caffeine too much. So when we're taking too much caffeine throughout the day, and sometimes you might think that extra caffeine is just going to perk you up and make you brighter and make you think a bit straighter. However, what it's actually doing is dialing up the adrenaline in your body. And we know that if we keep increasing adrenaline in our body, that's going to increase cortisol, which is going to increase inflammation. It's not going to help things right down onto a cellular level. So look at your caffeine, because caffeine, again, can make us react rather than respond to a situation, because it's really heightening us up. It's getting us into this heightened stress position, and we can start being very impulsive with our thoughts. Whereas when we're less caffeinated, we're going to be more mindful. We're going to be able to zoom out and look at everything with a bit more objectivity. When we're amped up with caffeine, we can be really reactive, and then we get these huge slumps, and that can affect our mood. So we need another coffee to get us going again. So this is something to look at. And again, right back to the first one, which was about phones, the dopamine hit. Same with the caffeine. It's still dopamine. It's still, where are we getting our hit from? So it's like, can we consider these things and how this is impacting on our nervous system? Something that I would consider, though, that we need to introduce, because it's sometimes not happening in a very busy world, is that we want to look at, are we bringing mindful slow movement in? Because if there's a lack of slow mindful movement, that's really going to amp up our nervous system again. What we need to be able to do is bring in mindful movement, because it's going to help us to have this flexibility, this resilience, this greater bandwidth within your nervous system. When we're adaptable, we are much better, and we're using the front part of our brain rather than using those instinctive, impulsive parts which happen when we're on the go. Again, operating on that high functioning anxiety that can be fed from caffeine and other things like that. So we want to consider, do we have a lack of slow mindful movement? Because we do need this deliberate, gentle, slow movement to reset muscle tension and tightness, and also to create that adaptability within our nervous system. So what I've got here, I've written down 5 points that I'd like us to consider as regards total somatics regulation strategies. So if you have a pen and paper ready, or just play this back at later on. But we've looked at it already. But the first one I'd consider is, can you set digital boundaries? Can you switch off those non-essential notifications? Can you put your phone on silent and even drop off the vibrate if possible? And if you don't want to do it all of the time, just see if you can do it for a large amount of the day. And then just come back and allocate times throughout your day. I don't know about you, but I know that I have a lot of things that I do throughout the day. A lot of structure and scheduling has to happen in my day. So I allocate time where I'll check my phone. I won't be constantly looking at it. I will look at it, I'll be working in clumps for different things for a few hours, and then I'll check my phone that way. And it's just the way. If I have something really pressing, I might have that phone nearby for that moment. But I've conditioned it that way. And people that know me also know that I'll say, I'll get back to you when I've allocated that time. So again, it's creating boundaries. And that's really, really important for our overall well-being. Something I'd also consider as a second point is, can you take 3 minutes? Again, it might not be 3 minutes, it might just be a few moments, but just 3 minutes to do some breath work and some pandiculation. So I'm actually going to give you a little bit of a tip here on what you could do for those few minutes. I'm going to encourage you, wherever you are, after this episode, to close your eyes, switch off all those notifications. And as you close your eyes, I'd like you to inhale through your nose for 7 counts. Hold your breath for 4 counts. And exhale out of your mouth for 8 counts. And just do that a few times and start to notice the shifts in your headspace, in your body. Notice the change in that calmness coming in instead of this living in your head. So we want to drop out of your head back into your body as much as we can in the day, because when we just live in up here and overthinking, over intellectualizing, over cognizing in our head, that feeds into a stress response. We need to come back into your beautiful body. So again, that's 7 counts inhaling through your nose, 4 counts holding your breath at the end of that inhale, and then exhale for 8 counts, and that's out through your mouth. And just notice the instinctive pandiculations that happen from a yawn. Because remember, a yawn is a pandiculation. So just let those yawns happen as and when. And if you have a big yawn, make it a bit bigger with your body and go, oh, let that happen. And then go back and do those cycles again. It might end up being only 5 or 6 times that you do that, but it's enough just to ground you. Just again, the more that you take those little breaks throughout the day, it helps to reset your nervous system when you have a lot of challenges going on. Obviously, I'm going to mention this is going to be my 3rd point, but could you do a regular pandiculation practice? So could you do something in the morning and or in the evening? And again, if you aren't aware of those pandiculation movements, I have lots of different types of movements that you can find within the Total Somatics online membership. So within the membership, you have little mini sessions, you have bigger sessions. There are workshops if you want to delve deep into certain health issues. And if you're not in the Total Somatics membership, if you go to totalsomatics.com, click on the Join Now page. And if the membership doors are open when you click on there, come and join me and everyone from around the world. If it's not, leave your details there on the wait list. And when we open the doors again, you are welcome to join me and all the wonderful friends globally. So that again is a daily practice of pandiculation. That's how we're going to create a reset, a software reset, and it connects your mind and body together again, because again, there's so much disconnect with society now. Also, the 4th point is stay hydrated and also watch your caffeine intake. So important to consider these 2 aspects. We need to really stay hydrated. It's so important for our body on so many levels. But also, we really need to take care of our caffeine. Caffeine is becoming quite a big issue now, with energy drinks as well as your espressos, your cappuccinos, all those sorts of things. They can really amp up your nervous system and they can increase adrenaline, which is again leading on to high levels of inflammation. So we really need to consider that. And that could be quite a stumbling block, or it could be something that you don't want to hear or consider. But just take that in and just meditate on that, because we want to take care of our current and future health. And regulating our nervous system is so important, really, really important. So the 5th point I'm going to share with you is to sprinkle little pandiculations into your day. So what that's going to do is break up those static postures that you're holding, and it will take you out of, as I mentioned before, living in your head, which is a real stress state, back into your body, which is a true embodiment practice when we're doing pandiculation. So just little tweaks. And again, in the Total Somatics membership, the online membership, there are lots of little mini sessions that I've created so you can take them away and put them into your everyday activities. Because the thing with Total Somatics is it's a lifestyle change. That's why I share all of this with you, because we're looking at everything that's going to help to take care of the state of our nervous system. So this is why when we're looking at it, all these small changes that I've mentioned here today are going to create big shifts within your nervous system health. And so that's why, again, I'm going to invite you to come and join me on the last weekend of October in 2025, which is actually only next week now. And if you go to totalsomatics.com workshops, you can see all the details. It's a 3-hour immersive workshop. It's live, it will be online. And so if you can join, it would be absolutely wonderful. If you do register for that workshop, you will receive the replay. However, it's really, really good to come to these events live because you'll pick up so much more. You also have the opportunity at the end, within the Q&A session at the end of the workshop, just to clarify points that you may not be too sure about. And again, as I've mentioned, if you're watching this after October 2025, you will find the Regulate Your Nervous System and Release Muscular Tension, the 3-hour workshop that I'll be holding. It will be available to purchase within the Total Somatics online shop. So have a look out for that if you're watching this after October 2025. So I'm going to love you and leave you, and I hope you have a wonderful week. I look forward to seeing you all next week live within this online event, which is really, really important. It's a very important time to be considering it, because by the time we get to the end of the year, we're getting close to the end of the year, we could have had some really big upheavals throughout the year, and it's really nice to come back and see strategies and tools and techniques that we can use to take this regulation of our nervous system and look after ourselves today, but also for our future health and well-being. So I look forward to meeting you online next week. All my love, all my very best wishes. Take care. Bye.
Thank you for joining me today. If you've enjoyed this episode, please leave a rating and also forward this on to somebody you know will benefit. To learn more about pain relief, plus how to improve your health and well-being, go to totalsomatics.com. Until next time, take care.